Okay, everybody. How's everybody doing? Good. Thank you. Let me say this. Thank you for braving the cold. Those of you who are here at the chapel, thank you for coming out. I appreciate that. It's a good time to be together, even though it's freezing cold outside. No. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah. Okay, fantastic. Welcome to those of you who are on Zoom as well. Let me remind you, if you are on Zoom, if you will, please keep yourself muted. We'll have a Q&A time at the end, and then we can then you can unmute yourself if you happen to have a question. So I'm Mark Hogsett, Executive Director for Site Jail and Prison Ministries. I don't think there's anybody in the room that I haven't met, that I don't know. It's great to see you all. I can't see everybody on Zoom. If I haven't met you, I hope to meet you very, very soon. So let me talk about a couple of things. First of all, you may be thinking, why in the world are we even here? Why did you bring us out in early January on a cold night to talk about volunteerism? Let me give you our why. It's certainly not to waste your time. And I see Edgar Miller coming through the door here in just a couple of minutes. He'll get the party started. It's not to waste your time. It is we felt like as we talked more and more as a staff, we felt like it was important that we all get together as volunteers and just refresh ourselves on the rules and regulations and the guidelines of the prison that dictate volunteerism here at the prison. If you're a jail volunteer, you already know you have to go through training in person to be a jail volunteer every year. It's not like that at the prison. You train one time when you initially get your blue card, and then you don't train anymore. We don't get back together and talk about rules and regulations and those types of things. So we felt like, I felt like it was good that we get together and refresh ourselves on rules. Some wise person once said, especially in prison, rules are there for a reason. So somebody at some point down the line messed up and it caused there to be a rule to prevent that from happening, right? So now we have this whole list of rules that kind of govern what we do here at the prison. Let me also say this. I hope you know how much we appreciate each and every one of you. I was looking at some facts and figures, and I was trying to determine how many volunteers we have cycle through here at the prison every year. It's hundreds, and it's thousands and thousands of hours that you are giving. And that, although we probably don't say it enough, that does not go unnoticed. We see you when you show up and make an impact on these men, and we're grateful. We cannot do this, and that's not overstating. We cannot do this work without you, right? Our staff is small. We have 7 of us, and then we have 1 very part-time person as well. So we can't nearly cover all the needs that are out there with just our staff. So you are a vital, vital part of the ministry. Some of you have been serving for decades. Some of you are newer. We're grateful for each and every one of you. So we hope that this time will be just a time of, like I said, we'll remind everybody on what we can and can't do. It's a time for you to ask questions. It'll be a time for us to go through a couple of changes that we'll see in the coming months or this year specifically. Let me say this too. I talked to the warden and our new program manager, Ms. Gast. We talked about this training, and they were appreciative of us for doing this. And they asked me to tell you that everything we're sharing here, it's not FJPM that's making these rules. It's the prison. Really, it's the state prison system that dictates the rules for volunteers. Does that make sense to everybody? So I appreciate you sitting through this. We'll have you out of here by 7 o'clock, if not before. Well, we're grateful for you being here. And again, if you will, save your questions to the end. We'll keep it fairly informal tonight. I'm going to talk for just a few minutes. In fact, you see here, I'll talk for a few minutes. Brooke, our office manager, is going to come up. She told me all day long she's got a song for you, but I guess she's not going to sing. She told me at the last minute she won't sing. She's going to do some review for us. Chaplain Carter will come up and talk about some expectations for programs and volunteers. And then I'll close this out walking through some of the undue familiarity or some areas of caution for volunteers, and then some conclusions as well. Just as a refresher, you can see our mission, our vision, and our core values. Our mission being Forsyth Jail and Prison Ministries uses Christ's love and forgiveness to transform lives and break the cycle of crime and punishment. That dictates everything we do here, and whether you know it or not, everything that you do here as a volunteer. That mission will never change, right? The programs, the methods, the way we do things might change, but that mission will not change. Everything we do is about Christ's love and forgiveness and exposing these men and the men and women at the jail to that love and forgiveness. I won't read through everything here, but you can see our vision and our core values that govern the way in which we do things as well. Let me take a moment and introduce our staff. Again, I think you all know everybody. For those on Zoom, I'm sorry you won't be able to see our staff, but we have Brooke Stoltz down here. Brooke is our office manager. Brooke likes to tell us she's the youngest staff member, but the one who's been here the longest, right? So Brooke's been here with us almost 10 years. So grateful for Brooke, and she's probably the one you interface with the most, dealing with various logistical types of things, dealing with volunteers. Holly Kessler. Holly is our Director of Community Engagement. Holly's been with us almost a year now, believe it or not. So Joan Reed retired in March. Holly came on. She says she didn't come on to replace Joan. She came on to succeed Joan. And Joan obviously laid a fantastic groundwork, and Holly's carried that on for the year that she's been with us. Grateful for Holly as well. Our senior chaplain, Chaplain Jeff Carter.
The humble one.
That's exactly right. There you go. That's a humble one right there. Jason Hawkins, who's here with us tonight, but he's in the back. He's in his office in the back dealing with a couple of things. Jason is our coordinator for our Transition to Work program. And I think you all know Jason. Jason spent 40 plus years incarcerated, and now he runs our Transition to Work program. I can't think of anybody better to do that. Let me tell you a quick story. I know I'm going over on time. I did introduce myself. I called Jason Monday morning. If you remember Monday, all the snow and ice and all that. And Jason drives Uber early in the mornings, a couple of days a week. And I said, are you out driving? How are the roads and this and that? And he said, I'm out driving. I'm not driving Uber. He said, there's a guy that graduated from the TTW program that can't get to work this morning because of the roads. And I went to pick him up and take him to work. You know, that's the stuff that nobody sees that Skip does for us. That was his first day. It was it was his first day of work on the job. He's just been out not too long. And he called Skip and said, my ride fell through with the roads and this and that. Skip said, I got you. I want you to get to work, and I want to make sure you're successful. So grateful for Skip and the great job that he does. The staff members that aren't here with us, most of you know Roy Izzard, Chaplain Roy Izzard. He's been with us right at a year now, and he does a fantastic job. The majority of his time is spent at the jail, but he's also here at the prison a couple of days a week. Jamie Edwards is our part-time chaplain. She serves about 6 to 10 hours a week at the jail, ministering specifically to the women there. So if you see Jamie at the jail or even around here, make sure you greet her. And then our newest chaplain, Christopher Smalls. Christopher came on with us in late November, and he'll be serving the bulk of his time at the jail as well. So that's our staff. Like I said, a small staff, but a great staff. I'm really, really grateful for each and every one and all the great ministry they provide every day. Let me call Brooke up. She's going to talk to us about some review materials and getting into the prison. Not going to prison, getting into prison.
Okay, so before I was joking all week and I said I have a sermon. And for everybody that knows me, well, our staff, I don't like to talk in front of people. I love to talk. I just don't like to talk in front of groups. So y'all bear with me because I'm really nervous to do this. But as we were planning this training, and then my church together is doing 21 days of prayer. Would you believe that this came across my 21 days of prayer, and I had to share it with you guys. It's Ephesians 4, 1 through 3. I therefore, a prisoner for the Lord, urge you to walk in a manner worthy of the calling to which you have been called, with all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing with one another in love, eager to maintain the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. So that just came across to me as we were talking about getting into prison, and while we're here. So, all of us are here. I'm gonna get back to the next one. So this is just the basics of getting in. Everybody here has a blue card or should have an active blue card. When you come, it's newer and we are trying our best to stick to it. So bring only your car keys if needed, your driver's license and your blue card. Driver's license is an addition. It's what you're supposed to bring when you come in. If you were to come in through the sergeant's office, they may very well ask for both. So we're trying to get in the habit of driver's license and your blue card, when you come in. Or salmon card. Active card is the key word in that sentence because they are not allowing anyone in unless your card is active. So, that's a big thing. Make sure you stay renewed. Don't bring in cell phones, electronic devices. I know it was made that you will see sometimes that our staff has cell phones. We have been given that privilege to do so. You will not see us abuse that, but we may be taking pictures. We may be communicating on call for the chaplains. But please leave yours in the car. Arrive in adequate time to get checked in, whether it be here or at the sergeant's office. So it is a privilege for all of us to be here. Myself, Mark, Holly, all of us are volunteers just like you. So it is a privilege that we get to come in this building every single day, as well as anybody that we let in for yoke fellows or Sunday worship. If you come straight here, we have some programs that do that. So just keep that in the back of your mind that that's been given that privilege by the warden, and at any time we could have to go back to signing in at the sergeant's office and coming across the yard, even including our staff. So, volunteering at the prison. Just a reminder, the primary role of every Christian volunteer in prison is to provide spiritual encouragement to offenders during regularly scheduled programs. So that's where the verse came to me that, we all do this together and that we're called to do this. And then once again, we're given a great privilege to be here to provide this ministry to the offenders at the prison. So for renewing, the training is separate. This is a FJPM ministry training that we are going to require each year. But to renew your blue card, you will need to get in touch with Miss Moss. The pink pieces of paper that are here for those that are in person, those online, we'll provide that information if you're on Zoom. But that is Miss Moss's contact information to renew your blue card. We also have some packets here in the office. If you want to contact us and you're here for a program, you can complete your packet then. If you misplaced your card, contact Miss Moss. She should have that on file and she can get you a copy. And she has requested that we do this 90 days out. So with you carrying that blue card or salmon colored card often in and out of the prison, just keep up with your date and then contact her in adequate time. And also, this isn't on the screen, but anybody in person that did not get our email and we need to update your information, this list is going to be over here as well. If you will leave me your name and email address, we'll make sure to get our records updated. Now, chaplain card. These are the, here's the information from Ms. Moss.
Yeah, once again, that information is there on the table. Please grab a little pink sheet, and make sure, I would just encourage everybody, even if she does have your email address, please just do it again. So we make sure we got everybody's email address. Very, very important. All right. So we're talking about the ministry, fair and equitable access. We see here access to participate in Christian programs be allowed on a fair and equitable basis. This is very important here. according to approved policies, procedures without regard to race, employment status, color, creed, denomination, or national origin. And so we want to also emphasize that no church, group, individual be granted special privileges. All right, so please keep that in mind. That's very, very important, that the rules apply to all of us. And the rules even apply to chaplains as well. The only thing that we can do that you can't do is carry our phones with us, basically. And so as you listen to some of the rules and regulations, please be in mind that this applies to everyone, regardless of how long you've been coming here, what program that you're involved in. It's for everyone, especially and particularly chaplains as well. Sunday worship services will be for local church groups, not individual volunteers. That's a change. I know in the past we've had our individual volunteers, a lot of our Yoke Fellows folks, you're able to come on Sunday evening, and it's been a joy and a blessing, but we're asking that from now on that you not come. This is for church groups only. And so what happens a lot of times is that if the guys see regular volunteers on a regular basis, they're going to gravitate to you more than the church folks who come for the fellowship time. And so that takes away from the church experience of interacting with the men, praying with the men, get to know them, and kind of have that special time together. So we're asking you just once again that is for church groups only on Sunday worship services from now on. Also, once again, as we always emphasize that we're interdenominational ministry. All right, we're not to impose or endorse or promote any particular church or doctrine or denomination or belief system. We just preach Jesus and Him crucified. All right, we don't get into end times, the 5 or 7 different end time scenario. When's Jesus coming back? We don't get into all that kind of thing, get everybody confused. I get confused about it. All right, so we just kind of keep it simple, just keep it about the Lord Jesus Christ. All right, so one of the things we want to remember for successful programs, planning, participation, and prayer, particularly those of you who might be doing Bible study, Yoke Fellows, that's important as well. There's not a lot of planning to do, but there's a lot of prayer, praying God to go before you, to lead you, to guide you, to help you to say the right words to the right guys. You're in a very, very important time in their lives of sharing and imparting grace, imparting God's love and grace and mercy to them in a time when they need it. You don't know where that guy is. You don't know what he's feeling, what he's been going through that day. I was just talking to and ministering to a fella. He came to Yoke Fellows last week, and he came into my office today talking about how he's struggling with depression and what all he's going through. So just be in prayer. Whatever ministry you're involved in, prayer is essential, and prayer is key to asking the Lord to go before you and to cover you and to cover that ministry and whatever you're participating in. Once again, the planning. It's important to be properly planned, purposely prepared. Preparing is very key. Each volunteer should have or be assigned a specific role to perform at a specific program. All right. So you just don't come in willy-nilly, just as, anytime you want to. You have to come in for a specific program that you are signed up for. Program should be participatory in nature. All right. So you're asking the guys to engage with you and to talk. Even if you're doing a Bible study, it's important to try to pull out of those guys what they're thinking, ask them questions, get them involved, and pull them in the conversation. All right. And particularly, you always have some guys who talk more than others. That's very normal. So when you see one guy kind of talking more than others or kind of over talking other guys, you step in and say, what about you? What do you think? So try to facilitate that and get everybody involved and participating in that work. Provide those opportunities, encourage once again. You can use handouts, follow-up work for engagement, very, very important as well. Solicit testimonies and prayer. That's a very, very important part. of having those guys to participate and to pray for them. Okay, some things it's okay to bring. You can bring your tracts, religious texts, right? Bibles for distribution to offenders who are participating. Such articles should be approved by the chaplains, though. You cannot give anything to the men unless it's first approved by the chaplain. And that's just a state rule as well. Okay, and you can't give it to one guy. You can't come in and bring something special for one guy that you become real buddies with. If you give one to one, you got to give it to all. And that even includes chaplains. We can't do that ourselves either at the same time. Other supplies and materials might be left for use by the chaplains at the same time and kept in the chaplain's office. If you say, well, chaplain, we're done with our class. I've got like 5 of these books left over. Can you use them? Sure, we'll take them. We'll use them. We'll give them out as the Lord leads. All right. Some things that are not allowed is ink pens, right? Spiral or ring binders, Bible covers, CDs, DVDs, flash drives, memory cards. Those are not allowed, and particularly you cannot give those to the men. Prayer is a priority. A prayer should be a priority for all of us as followers of Jesus in our personal lives, as well as the work of our ministry. And this is your work. This is your ministry. Okay. And so you need to make this a priority. If you're part of a Bible study, if you're in Yoke Fellows, if you're coming with your church group on Sunday, whatever your work and ministry is, it should be a priority in lifting this up to the Lord and praying and asking God to go before you during your time with the men. You should be praying during the time, and you should be praying afterwards as well. Lord, how can we make this better? Lord, he might lay somebody on your heart and somebody shared something with you that day or that evening, to be praying for those men as well. Once again, you should start each program with prayer, ask for prayer requests, praise reports, pray for the specific needs of the inmates if appropriate. You want me to show the holidays? You want to do that? You're good? All right. Okay, so there are certain holidays that the chapel is closed. You see that on the list there. We have all the way there. You see New Year's Day, Martin Luther King Jr. is coming up this month, Good Friday, Memorial Day, Independence Day, Labor Day, Thanksgiving Day, and the day after, Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. In December, we will not have regularly scheduled programs. Like this past December, we had no Yoke Fellows. We had special programs every Thursday during the month of December. December is a crazy time. It's a busy time. It's a blessed time. A lot of things going on as well. All right. Now, of course, all this excludes Sunday worship. We always have Sunday worship, regardless of what holiday that may be. All right. Have Mr. Hogshead, he will take over from here.
Let me mention, Jeff was talking about holidays where, if there's a holiday, we won't have programs. In fact, Joff, that impacted you just last week. Joff's Disciple Bible Study fell on Wednesday, and that was New Year's. So we had to push that back another week. Speaking of times where we won't be meeting, and then given the fact that we've had some weather the last couple of days, if there's a snowstorm or if there's inclement weather of any type or whatever the case may be, and you're scheduled to be here for a program, FJPM goes along with Winston-Salem Forsyth County school calendar. So if the school system is closed, FJPM is going to be closed for programs. Okay, so that way there's no wondering, there's no, well, are they going to do it or not? Now I will say this, and I have a child in the Forsyth County schools. They closed today for whatever reason. I was driving in, and in my head, I'm thinking, are the roads too nice, too bare? They just didn't want to come out. I don't know. But I realized that the schools sometimes close, and you think, well, they didn't need to close today. It's just our guideline. We're going to go with whatever the school system does. Okay. So just keep that in mind. You can obviously check the WXI or whatever to see what the school system closing is. Brooke, do you want to mention anything about that as far as we'll put a message out as well?
It's on WXI.
Oh, so we'll put ours on there. I'm sorry? And Holly will put it on social media as well. Let me talk about a couple of areas of caution, okay? And I know some of you have been volunteering. Joff, you've been here for 20 plus years. Some of you may say, I don't break these rules. I just come in and do my thing and I leave. We're not doing this because we feel like everybody's breaking rules. We're just doing it as a refresher. By the way, when we do staff meeting, we talk about these very things, right? We talk about security, safety, rules. We constantly remind ourselves, hey, let's make sure we're watching this, this, and this, and make sure that we don't get too comfortable. Or, you know, the more comfortable you get, the more likely it is you can let something slide or whatever the case may be. So we found as a staff, it's good for us to constantly talk about it, constantly remind ourselves about it. You all don't want to come every week and sit in our staff meeting. I realize that. So we're only going to do it once a year for you. So we'll save you that weekly burden. So a couple of areas of caution: confidentiality, undue familiarity, victimization, and sexual harassment. Let me run through these. And then again, at the end, we'll take some questions. So confidentiality is the volunteer's responsibility to report any statements or actions made by an offender that may affect the security and control of the prison facility. Let me give you an example, okay? And I don't know that this has happened or not, but let's say you're in Yoke, fellas, and at your table, somebody says something that you think, boy, that doesn't sound right. That person might harm himself, or that person, the comment he made, he's a security threat to the prison. Please report that. Don't keep that to yourself and go home. Please let a staff member know, or Joff, like if you're here with no staff member, let an officer know. Anything, if it doesn't seem right, it's probably not right. So err on the side of caution when it comes to that. Now, if somebody is sitting at your table and says, you know, it's my birthday today, nobody said happy birthday. That's not something to run and get an officer and say, oh man, I don't know what nobody wished him happy birthday. Use your judgment as far as that goes, but make sure you're paying attention to that. Any conversations with staff concerning an offender is considered to be confidential and will be shared with, and will not be shared with other offenders. That's the opposite of confidentiality. Yeah, it will not be shared with other offenders. So obviously what you hear here at the prison, if an offender tells you something, that's not something to take outside and share with your church. Offender so-and-so told me this or that, or even share, you know, with your friend group. Keep that confidential. Those individuals are sharing that with you with confidentiality in mind. The discussion of staff members with offenders will not be tolerated. Please do not engage if you have an offender come to you and say, boy, I really hate such and such an officer, or this warden does this and this person does that. We don't want any of that happening here. That's not why we're here. They have a system at the prison for grievances and those types of things. They can follow that. Please don't indulge that, and certainly don't say, yeah, I agree with you. I don't like that officer either. I don't think you all would do that, but please make sure you're not engaging in anything like that with the men, and don't let them trash me either, or Jeff or Holly or Brooke. Failure to comply with these guidelines could jeopardize your status as a volunteer. I will say this: the prison staff and leadership take that very seriously. If an offender is talking with you about an officer and running that officer down, they take that very seriously out there, and it can, if you're engaging in that, it could affect your status as a volunteer. And obviously we don't want that to happen to anybody. Let's talk about undue familiarity. This is probably the area most of you are most familiar with because it's the one that's preached the most, okay? Undue familiarity, quite simply, is being too comfortable in your surrounding here at the prison to where you're getting too comfortable with the men on the prison yard. They're too familiar with you, you're too familiar with them. We have to remember this, and I hope you understand my heart behind what I'm saying. Prison exists for a reason, whether you agree with it or not. I'm not here to argue that, but prison exists for a reason. We have to maintain those boundaries. We are volunteers. Those men are incarcerated, and we can't blur those lines. Okay. Maintain boundaries. Purpose of a volunteer is to hear, not share your personal story, to help and to not be helped. Listen to these men. That's great. But it's probably not the time for you to share. Well, it's not probably. It isn't the time for you to share your whole personal story and, you know, how your wife bothers you when she does this and that and your family and this. Leave all that stuff for somebody else outside of the prison. Your job is to minister to these men, hear their story, help them when it's appropriate, turn them over to a chaplain if further help is needed. But please maintain boundaries. No personal business is allowed, especially with money. Okay. The more comfortable you get, you never know when somebody comes and says, Charles, I'm getting out of prison here in a couple of weeks, and you know, let's strike this business deal here and this and that. This is not the place for those discussions. Okay. Once that man is out of prison, by all means, if you can follow up with him, but please do not engage in those types of conversations while you're here, especially in regards to money. Okay. Physical contact is not allowed other than a handshake. This is a biggie. Okay. And I know it's a biggie because we as a culture, so we see each other, we haven't seen each other in a while, we give each other a hug, right? You cannot do that in prison. And I'm telling you, it's a big one, not just for FJPM, but for the prison staff and leadership as well. Refrain from any physical contact other than a handshake. Okay. And by the way, we're talking to the men on the yard as well. They're not to be coming in and running up to you, Floyd, give you a big hug. They're not to be doing that. You're not to be doing that to them either. Let me tell you why. Okay, we're not trying to deprive anybody of a nice moment with one of these men. All it takes is you to hug somebody and that person go to the warden and say, that volunteer touched me inappropriately when he hugged me. Okay. Or the opposite of that, if you hug somebody and the offender touches you inappropriately. Okay. There's liability both ways. And it can literally, and I'm not being, this is not hyperbole, that's something that could shut our ministry down. Okay. If it comes out that there was some type of sexual harassment because we're hugging each other, and that we as an organization weren't enforcing the rules, they could easily say, FJPM, you can't be here anymore. I'm sorry, we can't have this liability. So, you know, that's a worst case scenario, but please make sure you're not doing anything to hug or even put your arm around, or nothing beyond a handshake. Okay. And that can be hard. I'm not a hugger, so that's no problem for me. But some people, that's their natural way to greet somebody, and it is a problem for you. Please do not do that. Yes, Brooke.
Sorry, if the parking situation, if you drive a gray BMW, could you move your car? In the parking lot? Okay, sorry. They have a work truck trying to get in.
Where it says to share your personal story and talk there. What about your own faith or testimony?
Yeah, that's fine. What I'm talking about, so your personal testimony or something that has a spiritual element to it, great. But I'm talking about your, like, you know, something personal with you and your family, or here's how many kids I have, and, you know, those types of things that just use your best judgment when it comes to that. That's a good question, and we will take questions at the end. So let me run through the rest of this, and then we'll take some questions. If a volunteer is aware that a family member or close associate is housed at the prison, he or she is not permitted to participate in any program. You cannot be here. If you have a family member or close associate that's incarcerated here at Cherry Street, you cannot come here as a volunteer. And that includes myself, that includes any of us. But you'll have to be the one you'll have to know that. We have no way of knowing that. So you'll have to self-report that. And you'll have to let us know, hey, I can't come because of, I have somebody, you know, a family member incarcerated there. We cannot allow, that's undue familiarity. It's too familiar. You're too familiar with that person that's incarcerated here. Avoid language that includes taking ownership of an area or offender or offenders. Example, my guys, my program, my table. That's too comfortable. Okay. These men here are not your men, just like you're not their volunteer. Okay. Please avoid using that language. I know that seems like a silly thing, but it's important. Okay. We're here for all the men on the camp, not just a certain group, not just my guys or whatever. And I know some of you that have programs, you do programs week after week, you get a group of guys maybe that come and that's kind of your group. Please refrain from that type of language. It shows these men, oh, I'm more special to so-and-so volunteer than this guy here. Okay. So we don't want any kind of language like that. Okay. Do not provide medical or legal advice. That's another biggie. Somebody comes and says, man, I've got this situation, this is acting up, I've got this pain. Please don't diagnose. Okay. They have the building right next door is the medical building. And they can certainly go over there. If somebody tells you about a medical situation, you refer them over to medical. Please leave that to the experts. Same with legal. We are here to provide ministry. We're not here to provide legal advice. Okay. We are not activists. We're ministers. We're ministers of the gospel. Okay. So please don't bring the activism in. Don't bring, somebody says, well, I'm in here for the wrong reason. I'm innocent, blah, blah, blah. Please don't start down the path of, I'm going to get you a lawyer and we're going to get you out of here and this and that and the other. That's a promise you may not be able to keep. Okay. So that's why we don't go down the legal road. We're here for a specific reason, and that's to share Christ's love and forgiveness through whatever particular program you may be doing. Please don't get too comfortable, especially the ones that are here all the time. Me, Jeff, Holly, Brooke, we're here every single day. It's easy to get comfortable. Okay, so we have to battle against that. Andy, you're here every week for tutoring. It's probably easy to get close to that guy you're tutoring. Just be careful with that. The closer you get, the more likely it is you could be asked for a special favor, or you could say, somebody could say, hey, can you just do this for me? Or can you bring this in for me next time you come? Well, if you have too close of a relationship, you're more likely to say, well, maybe I can do that. Okay. We've got to battle against undue familiarity. We want you here. We want you here for every program that you're signed up to participate in. Like I said before, we need you, but we don't want you to get too familiar. Okay. Undue familiar extreme case, process of a volunteer issue. That's not anybody specifically in the room or on Zoom. This is just hypothetical. You're forgetting, ignoring, or denying the rules. The rules don't apply to me, and that can lead to distance from other volunteers, chaplains, officials. You kind of keep to yourself with your guys. That can lead to the breaking of a rule and deception to cover that up. And that ultimately can lead to disqualification of being a volunteer. We don't want that for anybody here. Like I said, we need you. You guys are fantastic volunteers, but please take undue familiarity very, very seriously. Okay. Victimization, overzealous volunteers. Did somebody pop into your mind? Don't say it out loud. I'm not going to ask for the name, but overzealous volunteers, you all know how that can be. Overzealous volunteers can condemn or degrade an inmate. They can disrespect personal rights of an inmate or even demand compliance. Let's say you're sitting in a Bible study and somebody is just maybe not really into it. They're just kind of sitting there doing their own thing, or maybe just not participating. You cannot demand compliance, or you're of a different faith group, or you're wrong and you need to become a Christ follower and this and that. That's overzealous volunteering. That's not why we're here, right? We share Christ's love and forgiveness. It's up to Christ to work on the heart. Okay. So please don't be overzealous. Remember to respect diversity and non-participation. Some people aren't comfortable at Yokefellow talking at the table. That's okay. Maybe in 3 or 4 weeks, that person will be comfortable. Joff, you probably see it all the time. Sometimes people don't want to speak up in a Bible study. That's okay. We respect diversity and non-participation. Legal, civil, and personal rights are very sensitive issues and closely monitored. Sexual harassment. Sexual harassment involving volunteers will not be tolerated, of course. Examples are requesting of sexual favors, verbal or physical contact of a sexual nature, flirtations, advances, propositions, questions, jokes, displays of sexually explicit pictures. That's self-explanatory. Okay, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but let me circle that back to what we were talking about earlier with hugging. In your mind, a hug is not sexual harassment, but that person you hug might view it as that. I cannot overstate that enough. That's why we're harping on it so much. Okay, that could be perceived as an unwanted sexual advance. Okay, and I know that's not what anybody means to do, so that's why we're saying no physical touch other than a handshake. Any unwelcome sexual advance which is made explicitly or implicitly will be regarded as a violation of this policy. That's something that we have to report. Okay, if something like that comes along, we have to report that to the warden. Actions affecting volunteer status. Submitting false, misleading, or incomplete information on an application or otherwise making false or misleading statements at any time. That really would be in your renewal paperwork. If you're falsifying something, that can jeopardize your status as a volunteer. Undue familiarity with and or victimization of offenders, prison staff, or families. If that happens over and over, if that happens even once, that can affect your status as a volunteer. And by the way, Brooke mentioned I'm a volunteer, she is, Holly is. That affects my status as a volunteer as well if I don't heed to these rules. Failure to cooperate with prison staff or FJPM staff and chaplains. You are wonderful to us as a staff. However, I just want to remind you, you may be having a bad day. Please make sure you're coming in here and treating us with respect, and we will do the same. I hope you feel like we treat you with respect. If that's not the case, tell me. Okay, we don't want anything like that happening here. If we say, hey, Edgar, I'm sorry, you've got to come downstairs for this program instead of upstairs. And Edgar says, well, I'm not doing it. I'm staying upstairs. Forget what you say, Mark. That would be an example of failure to cooperate. Okay, Edgar would never do that, of course. That's why I picked on him. But please cooperate. You never know the reason behind what we're telling you to do. We're not going to tell you to do anything that's harmful, illegal, immoral, nothing like that. So if we tell you to do something or an officer tells you to do something, please cooperate. Violating facility rules, regulations, policies, and procedures. Of course, that goes without saying. That can affect your volunteer status. Failure to observe specific program requirements and policies as a volunteer. That could be any number of things. Let's say you're a tutor and but you're not really using the time to tutor. You're using that time to proselytize or hammer somebody who may not be the same religion as you, or whatever the case may be. Your program you should do exactly what you're supposed to do with your program, exactly what it's designed to do. And please remember not to abuse that. Breach of confidentiality. Again, we already talked about that. Conduct unbecoming a volunteer. Erratic or unreliable attendance as a group. If your church group is coming to worship, please make sure they're here. It's really difficult for a chaplain if they have a church group scheduled and then that church group just doesn't show up. Okay, that rarely happens, Brooke. I don't know that it's happened in a long time. Again, we have wonderful volunteers, but please make sure if you're scheduled to be here to lead a Bible study, make sure you're here. You can always give a phone call if you can't make it. That's no problem. Things happen. Okay, but please just let us know if you're supposed to be here. Make sure you're here. Failure to maintain expected program quality. Jeff talked about it. Prepare for your program. Plan your program properly. Joff, I don't know how many hours you and Cindy put in preparing for Disciple Bible Study, and I know I'm talking to Joff a lot. Same thing with the Lefflers, Bible Study Fellowship. They plan it, they organize it, it's well done, and we want everybody to do that. These men deserve quality programs. They don't just deserve us to come and sit with them. They deserve the top quality, top-notch programming. Okay, we expect that of ourselves as a staff, And of course, we expect that of volunteers as well. Any other reason deemed appropriate by FJPM staff or prison administration. Disciplinary process. This says written warning, but really it's a warning. Let's say, Temp Elliott comes in and he just can't help himself. He just has to hug every guy that he sees. Okay. I'm going to say, Temp, I love you. You're the best, but please don't hug people anymore. If Brooke was doing that, I would say, Brooke, please don't do that anymore. We cannot hug this. So if you're breaking a rule, whether you know you're breaking it or not, that's the reason for this training. So everybody kind of knows what the rules are, then you'll receive a warning. Okay. And by the way, this is from the warden as well. Okay. This is how he wants the process. You'll receive a warning. Sometimes you forget. We expect that once you get that warning, you won't make that mistake again. After that, if it continues to happen, we will have to notify the prison administration. And then there's potential for a suspension of your volunteer card or even the revocation of your volunteer card. Okay. Again, that's how serious it is. There is a real liability with these types of things. Okay. Conclusions. So here's just some general conclusions as we wrap things up here, and then we'll take a few questions. Bring your volunteer card every time you come to the prison. You cannot come in without it. That should have been happening all along. The warden just came to us and asked us that we really make that a priority. Since they're allowing volunteers to come into the chapel and not check in at the sergeant's office, I agree with Brooke. That's a huge blessing. It's a benefit. But we as a staff are doing what the warden said. We're going to be checking volunteer cards every time you come. The Lefflers, every Friday when they come for a disciple Bible study, they walk in and show me their card. In their mind, they're thinking, I show you this every week. You know who we are. You know what our date is. But we just do that out of habit to make sure that it does a couple of things. First of all, it reminds you when your volunteer card expires. The more you look at that date, the more you remember, oh, I'm 90 days out from this expiring. I better contact Miss Moss. It also lets us know, for those that we don't know as well, or that don't come as often, it lets us know that your card is active and that you are an approved volunteer.
My card took 2 months to get.
Yeah, well.
And I called Dobson, I can't tell you how many times. And I talked to people over there, I can't tell you how many times.
Yeah, sometimes it takes a while. That's not ideal. I'm sorry, Dr. Landry, that happened. If you want to call me, I can, run across there and talk to them. Usually, sometimes they're busy and things just get, other priorities. That's not ideal. And I understand that and I hear you and I know that does happen. But that's why we say 90 days out, do that paperwork. And then that gives you a 3-month buffer there to get your card. Volunteer training will be held every year. That's what this is. The first week of January, no programs will begin before the training takes place. Okay, so we'll do this every first week of January. Again, Zoom or in person. That is a change. That is something that's new, but I think it's very, very important. December, we won't have any regularly scheduled programs, only special Christmas programs. Like Jeff said, December is chaos around here. It's a wonderful time of year, but there's something going on every day and every night for Christmas. Sunday evening worship will be for local church groups only. No outside volunteers can attend unless a church group is not scheduled. Let me mention that because I know we do have some folks that like to come to Sunday evening worship. We're not doing that because we don't like you. Jeff is exactly right. We've had several church groups call when we ask them how their experience is, they'll say, well, we didn't really get to interact with the guys because they were kind of with their volunteer that they know more than us. We want that church group. That could be the church group's only chance to come throughout the year. And most of them are one-time volunteers. They're not blue card volunteers. We want them to have a great experience. You can always check our website. The program calendar, the worship calendar is on the website. And you can see if there's a church group scheduled for that or not. I think somebody on Zoom is muted. If you could all check and make sure that you're muted properly, please.
Riley, have Dee stand with you. Have Dee stand with you on the front porch.
Somebody's on the front porch. I don't know. So anyway, the purpose behind that change with Sunday night volunteers. We want to make sure the church group has a great experience here. And if we don't have a church group scheduled, you're more than welcome to come. If you need to call me and ask me, call me and ask me. I'll tell you if there's a church group scheduled or not, but it's on the website, right, Brooke? So you can click on there. If there's no church group scheduled, come on for Sunday night worship. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Reminders, dress appropriately, avoid provocative attire, self-explanatory. I'll go no further with that. Open-toed shoes are not allowed. Okay, make sure you're wearing closed-toed shoes. Never give an offender anything without first receiving permission by asking an official. Do not take any items from an offender, including letters or notes, to family or friends. It might seem innocent, but let's say you're leaving, Gary, you're leaving tonight and an offender says, hey, will you drop this in the mail when you leave? You cannot do that. Okay, you cannot do that. Even if it's something, oh man, I read this great book. I'm going to bring it in when I come for Bible study and I'm going to give it to an offender. You cannot do that without asking a chaplain. Okay, you cannot give anything to the men that are coming to a program, and you cannot take anything from them as well. Do not make promises or agree to perform special favors. Avoid any involvement with offenders other than that which is in conjunction with the purpose of your visit. Don't make promises. Don't tell somebody, when you get out, you come see me. I'm going to give you a job. That may be your thought tonight. That may not be your thought in 2 years when that man gets out of prison. You make a promise, I guarantee you they're not going to forget it. Okay, please don't make promises. Do not give your home address and phone number to the offenders. You shouldn't be giving out business cards, no home address, nothing like that. Show respect for the facility, its officials, and offenders. Brooke, Holly, Jeff, anything I missed before we get to questions? Anything that needs further explanation? Questions? Karen, let's start with you.
There was a slide, I think, that we skipped over that talked about the age requirements to come in. I saw it on a slide, but we didn't talk about it.
21. All volunteers must be 21 years of age, or older. Okay. Yeah. So we put that slide back up. Karen asked a question. I think we must have skipped over this. Must be legal adult age, 21 years or older. This is to be a volunteer. You must attend a training within 12 months of the last training. That's this training here. So you'll need to attend next year as well. Complete the renewal application with Miss Moss, and Brooke mentioned those pink slips over there. Complete your renewal packet 90 days out and give that to her. Yes, Edgar.
Frequently, like it donuts and devotion, after where you said no notes, I'll have a inmate come up and hand me a piece of paper and said, I'd love for you to take me out on community visits. Is that acceptable?
I wouldn't take anything, Edgar.
You can't, can you go through the chaplain
Yes.
or you?
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
but I
whoever's
have
there.
accepted several and then ended up taking.
Yeah, I know it seems innocent, but
That's why I asked. it.
yeah, I wouldn't even go down that road. You just never know what then somebody says, oh yeah, me and Edgar, he's gonna do this, and I gave him a note, but you just never know where that can lead. Let me mention this too. I think I forgot. Those of you who are salmon card volunteers that take men out on pass, please make sure that you don't get into the habit of taking the same individual out week after week after week. That should be for everybody that's eligible to go out on pass, okay? And I know it's, there may be a guy that you really like or that you connect with, but make sure you're spreading that wealth. We love our salmon card volunteers. You're providing a huge, huge benefit to these men as they approach release, but please make sure you're spreading the wealth. Dave, did you have?
With that said, if I know the guy, he sits at my table and I know where his head's at, and his heart's at, I'll take him out. But if I don't, I'm just not gonna randomly, it's not a lottery,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Yokeville, they may get to know you and you take them out on pass. Where it becomes an issue if it's every week, you're saying, I'm taking this guy out. Before you know it, it's 10 times in a row.
So doing that. And
That's undue familiarity. That's too familiar.
I knew that.
Yeah.
You might have touched on this, and let me return to it. So, how do we know who to take out?
Miss Burnett can help you with that. She has a list of eligible guys and guys that go to her or go to the programmers and say, you know, I'd like to come out. But also Pete at Yokefellow, Jeff, right? There may be a guy at Yokefellow that says, man, I just got my eligibility to go out on pass. Well, that's a great way too. You know, it's you may find, and then you can request. It's no problem. And correct me if I'm wrong, you guys, it's no problem to call Miss Burnett and say, I'd like to take, you know, Joe Smith out. I talked to him at Yokefellow. That's fine. Where it becomes an issue is when you're doing it over and over and over, and then other men that want to go out on pass don't get to go.
And I think it may be helpful too, to answer Edgar's question. For those on Zoom, Edgar was asking, how do you know who would need a pass or that information once you get home? You can bring in a notepad and write their name down yourself.
There you go.
That way you didn't pass anything back. You know, they didn't give you anything, you didn't take anything out. If you're wanting to keep up with the names of folks from Yoke Fellas, you can bring in a pad and write their name and Opus number down.
Yeah, and I got a couple comments. Typically what happens at Yoke Fellas is a lot of times the guys will come in and ask the volunteers, are you able to take people out? And if you say, yeah, they'll give you.
They'll give you their information.
But most of the time I check chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you, Jeff, you can make that call, what's appropriate.
And that just keeps, you know, just bad things being passed around.
Yeah.
Really, if it goes through chapel. Yeah.
I think Brooke's right. Bring you a notepad and say, I'll write that down, and then you can take it.
Then you've only brought whatever you brought in, you took back out.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
And one of the things I want to say, matter of fact, thank you for this. You did an outstanding job. I learned some things. You know, my name is Floyd Cook. I'm on the board. I participate in the Yoke Fellows, CRC, and I help Skip out, you know, mentoring the guys, TTW, their exit interviews or what have you. But him going through a lot of these things, sometimes I sat back and say, I've witnessed some of this. And I'm thinking right now, what is it we can do to help you all out also? And I think we're all involved in programs enough where we know each other enough. We might want to make sure we start checking each other also.
Sure. Yeah, that's what we do as a staff.
Especially your fellas coming in on Sunday, it's not intentional, and you see the guys all the time.
Yeah.
You know, but it's something when the churches come in on Sunday and he goes through all the rules, just like you're going, especially the sexual harassment and no hugging.
Come closer to this while
And
you're
then
talking,
you
they
come
can't hear you.
upstairs, volunteers start hugging people. Sometimes the churches are looking like. oh,
That's right.
You know, so I think it'd be a good idea if we start checking each other.
Yeah. So for those on Zoom, Floyd was saying those volunteers that come, it's okay to check each other as well and hold each other accountable to the rules. You know, he was using the example of when a church group, group of one-time visitors, you know, Jeff will read the rules before Sunday worship. And one of them is no hugging. And then they come upstairs and there's other volunteers, blue card volunteers hugging people. It's very confusing for those one-time volunteers. Andy?
I have a kind of broad question. You talked in the beginning about this being non-denominational and interfaith. Are there any support for, say, someone who identifies as Islamic?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
I want to repeat his question.
Yeah,
They
so
can't
the
hear.
question for those on Zoom was, we are non-denominational, and is there any support for folks who are of another faith group, say Muslim, or we even have some American Indian religions? I think there's 17 recognized religions by the state. And yes, the chaplains can match a local clergy of that faith group with a man here. They also, Jeff, do you want to talk about the minority religions? They have access to the chapel if they.
Yeah, and that's, as a state approved chaplain, that comes under our umbrella. And that it's our job to make sure that the men are taken care of all faiths, that they have access to whatever needs they have and concerning their own faith group. But a good example is tomorrow, Moore Science Temple. They have an observance for their leader. And so it's only 3 guys, but they're going to be going downstairs and having a special meal, having a special prayer time. And so we do that, and we make sure that those men are taken care of when it comes to their own faith group. Yes.
Good question.
Mark, Jeremy Willard, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I have a quick question. You had mentioned earlier that you're educating the guys at the camp as well about hugging,
Yeah.
and trying not to do that. Are they also being educated about what you just said recently about, we're trying as sponsors, to take different inmates out? I know that a few times I've had guys that obviously you get to know and they do want you to take them out every week. I think it would be nice if they're hearing that from you guys, so they're not being put off by us if we don't take them out and we take someone else out. You know what I mean?
Good point, Jeremy. Yeah, I hear you, and we will do that. Absolutely. Great point.
Is there a limit how many we can, I mean, per month? Per inmate?
You'd have to check with Miss, I don't want to speak anything. That's really the prison that makes those rules. Check with them, and they'll give you all the direction on that. I think somebody back, yes, sir.
Now, I'm aware of the sharing and listening to the inmates. Sometimes I feel awkward presenting the gospel because either another volunteer might be on my table who's not interested or not bringing it up. And there might be one inmate at my table who wants to hear it, but the other 4 are engaged in, conversation. So I'm not quite sure how I can bring it up. I think when you mentioned prayer, I think that's a little bit easier for everyone. But when you talking about the Bible, sometimes the guys at your table, they don't show any interest, or I'm not quite sure. How do I break the ice with that?
Yeah, I think you're going to have that. We have to understand that the men on this camp are coming to programs with motives other than just hearing the gospel. Sometimes they're coming in because there's coffee, and that's it. And they're going to sit at your table so they can get that cup of coffee. And that's okay. That shouldn't be intimidating for anybody. I think you share what you're comfortable with. If somebody doesn't participate, that's okay. We had a discussion as a staff. We were having guys were coming in just at the tail end of worship so that they could go downstairs and get the snacks. Part of me was like, no, we're not going to allow that. And then somebody else said, wait a minute. What if it's that snack that brings that guy into the chapel and he hears something from a volunteer that changes his life? Might not have been the worship service. Maybe it's just over a snack downstairs.
And I would say to follow up with that on Yoke Fellows specifically, Yoke Fellows is designed to be a listening ministry. So Chaplain Carter provides an icebreaker topic, and if it leads to a discussion about the Bible, great. But it may not every time for the entire group.
And that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, that's right.
We did have a question online. It was under the chat for renewals. Once again, this training is just for FJPM ministry programs housed in the chapel. If you need to renew your card, you need to contact Miss Moss at the prison to renew your actual blue card or salmon card.
And if you need that contact information, you're on Zoom, let us know. Email me, Brooke, whomever.
Yeah, we talked about attending this training session in the 12 months. I think you're recording this. Is
Yes.
it possible to post this for guys that couldn't get here?
Yep.
Whatever.
We're doing exactly that.
So the plan is to email it out. And if you, just as you got the information about the training, we're gonna email the link to the, recording of the training.
And they
tonight.
let you know that they.
Yes.
They looked at it.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah. Guys, we're pushing up. We're 5 minutes past 7. I'm sorry. I promised to have you out of here by 7. Are there any last minute questions? And we'll get you out of here.
I have a quick question, Mark. Anitra here.
Yeah, hey, Anitra.
Hey,
Brad.
so I know that I was told that anything that's on the calendar that Blue Card members or Blue Card holders are welcome to come to, but it sounds like it might need to be a little bit more intentional than that, which is fine. But it's like, what are the things y'all need more volunteers for? And what are the things that you don't need people just randomly showing up to? Is that an easy question or?
What's that? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I would say that, and one of our goals in 2025 was to try to get groups in for worship and for the program. So in the future, as you saw at Christmas, we had a group that came in and did the Christmas story for In the Name of the Father. The plan is to find a group. So if you or your small group or your church group are like, I know y'all do that program at Christmas every year and I'd like to provide the snacks. Call and talk to us. We'll get you hooked up. You can provide the snacks. Your group can come in and volunteer, pass them out, that kind of thing. So we're just going to be trying to more intentional of getting groups of people in for each program. So if there's something that you and your small group are interested in, then just give me a call and we can hook you up for volunteering for that.
So Yoke Fellows is the thing that you like need people for, but like I think there's something on Monday night, not so much, it's covered.
Right.
Well, there's Bible study on Monday night. We have somebody who does the Bible study, so we don't necessarily need additional volunteers. And there's a lot more to your question, Anitra, I realize, than we can get to here. You or Brad, feel free to call me and we can talk through that a little more.
Thank you.
Part of the undue familiarity is, and I hear what was said, but if you're coming here every single day for whatever program's happening, that's just more and more familiar you get with the men. So that's one way, by limiting, coming to a select program or a program or two, that limits the amount of times you're here. It limits undue familiarity, if that makes sense. Okay.
Sure, we don't have any more questions on the chat. No.
What if you have clothes that you want to donate?
Yeah.
Okay, who do you go to give these clothes?
Yeah, you can bring that to us. We do take clothes. We use them for, Jason will take them to ex-offenders who are graduated from our transition to work program. Sometimes we'll take them across to the clothes house. Men can wear them to go out on pass. Edgar's done that. He's given clothes before. And we also give clothes to men who are just getting out of prison. We'll give them some clothes if needed as well. So you can bring those here. Call us, let us know. We're here every day, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, generally 8 to 5. So you can always drop those by.
I would add in-season clothes at the time that we're wearing them. That's what the guys also need, and gently used.
Mark. You also have programs for the prisoners, like 7 Habits.
Yes.
Can volunteers participate in that?
If you're teaching or if you're involved in that program, you can come for that program. If you would like to get involved in it, contact me. Okay, contact me. We can get you involved in those classes. Bobby?
Yes, Mark, you guys may not be able to say it, but, we can always make contributions, donations to FJPM. I mean, they're always needed, so.
Yeah, no doubt. I paid Bobby to say that. Thank you. No, I didn't really.
You're welcome.
Of course. You can volunteer. That's a great way. You can support us financially. We are community funded. So that's a great way to support as well. You can provide hygiene supplies, clothing, all those types of things. Your presence is a gift. Okay. I know probably some of the stuff we walk through, you're thinking, man, do they even want us here? No, we want you here. Your presence is a gift. It's the best way you can support us. So thank you. Thank you for that. Any other questions? Great. Let's do this. Chaplain Carter, if you'll close us in prayer. Thank you to all you on Zoom. This is recorded. We will email this out so you can review it. And then we'll see you at the next program. And if you have further questions, contact me, call me. Okay. And Jeff, if you'll close us in prayer.
Absolutely. Father God, thank you for this evening and for our volunteers. We thank you for each and every individual in their hearts for you and to reach out to these men here at the prison and those who serve at the jail. May you bless them. May you keep them. And so, Father, may you be with each and every one of us as we leave this place and go to our separate homes, as we give you all the praise and the honor and glory in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you all.
God bless you all. Thank you.
God bless you. There's pink, sheets up here with Ms. Moss's contact information on it. Please make sure you grab one of those. You can give us your email, name and email